But first, if you want to get something done, it's good to set a deadline. But if something is a really bad idea, setting a deadline to make it happen just guarantees a train wreck. Call me cynical here too, but releasing details of this deadline right in the middle of an international story like coronavirus looks to me to be deliberate, like you're hoping no one picks it up, at least until it's too late. But hoping the media misses it is exactly why I'm going to cover it tonight at the top of the show, right up in neon lights. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about a story in the Australian newspaper today that Ken Wyatt, the federal government's Indigenous Affairs Minister, has announced a timeline to try and make two very contentious changes to governance in this country. The first is the creation of a new Indigenous voice to the Parliament to give Indigenous Australians alone access to a separate parliamentary mechanism beyond the House of Representatives and the Senate, of course, that we all share. Wyatt wants this legislated, done and dusted by the end of this year. The other issue is his proposal to hold a referendum on Indigenous constitutional recognition by the middle of next year, so 2021. In short, a legislated voice within 12 months and a constitutional recognition within 18 months. And here's why I'm cynical. Despite the enormity of what the Minister is proposing, we have no specific proposal on either issue. And as late as when I came on air a few moments ago tonight, there is still no official media release or statement on the Minister's website to provide any more detail other than what's in the paper this morning. And here's the risk. That a legislated kind of mini parliament for Indigenous people that even Malcolm Turnbull described as a third chamber of the parliament, that it will divide our country by skin colour, make Indigenous policy even more contentious and more ineffective if that's possible. And of course, my biggest worry, permanently set back the cause that I hope we all share, a real advancement, practical advancement for Aboriginal people. Now, I would be amazed if any of this has even been discussed with the Prime Minister, let alone been taken to Cabinet, and certainly not the Coalition party room. But Wyatt's probably thinking here doesn't really matter. Because if Labor supports it, it will pass the Parliament, even if some of his colleagues cross the floor against it. And disunity now for the Coalition, after a tough summer and, of course, these sports rorts, well, this unity in politics is death. To date, I've regarded Ken Wyatt as a decent man who very obviously wants to do the right thing by Indigenous Australians, but he's on a frolic of his own here if this timeline proceeds, and he'll take down his own government with him, because let me tell you, this is the last thing that the Coalition's base will support. Who can forget the last time government tried to set up a formal elected body to represent Aboriginal people? It was called ATSIC. Now, that was a miserable failure, mired in corruption allegations, infighting and controversy, until it was finally abolished, and no one complained, by the Howard government. This new body, Wyatt's third chamber, Malcolm Turnbull's third chamber, or ATSIC Mark II, who will elect it? Don't know. Who will be elected? Don't know. What will it do? Don't know. Will it second-guess legislation? No idea. Will it have veto powers over legislation? Who knows? And why, through this body, does an Indigenous person get more rights when it comes to laws that affect them than any other Australian who doesn't have a specially established body based on their ethnicity? Now, before the Twitter crazies burn their fingers having a crack at me, let me say, unlike many of them who just mouth off online, I have worked long and hard inside government on policies, real policies, to try and make the lives of Indigenous people better. I've been to dozens and dozens of Indigenous communities in every state and territory, and I've stayed there. I've listened, I've learned for close to 2 decades. And I'm all in favour, absolutely all in favour, of Aboriginal people, particularly Aboriginal women, having more say in their country. But by far the best way to do that is to elect more Aboriginal people to our national parliament. And that's exactly what Australians have been doing by choice, not legislation. But if we start having separate mini parliaments for Aboriginal people, why not have them for women? Let's have a women's parliament, one for migrants, for people with disabilities, indeed for every group that feels unheard and unrepresented. And as for constitutional recognition, this is John Howard's legacy. It was what he proposed as an alternative to the national apology that he was unwilling to make. Well, we had an apology under Kevin Rudd, yet there's now demand for recognition too. Of course, and a treaty. That's coming. It's already started in Victoria, as if a state can make a treaty with its own people. Give me a break. And with a treaty, you guessed it, financial compensation follows, and that's the real endgame. Now, sadly, only a PM can rein in a minister this headstrong, but he's got to do it, or he risks dividing more Australians than he'll ever unite. And he also risks sending his own government to the wall while at it.